Welcome to Books on Air, the podcast that tells the story behind the book. It includes insights from authors about how they compose their work, what inspires them, and what they hope you'll take away from their book. Here's your host for this episode of Books on Air, Suzanne Harris.
Welcome to the Books on Air podcast. I'm Sloan Fremont, filling in for Suzanne Harris. This is a podcast where listeners get the secret story behind every book. Joining me today is Glen Just, author of the book, Image Transformations of the Brain-Mind, Experiencing the Emergent Supervening Self. This book demonstrates how each person can interpret dreams with meaning unique to themselves. Glen, welcome to the Books on Air podcast.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes, and this topic of dreams is so interesting to me. So I've been looking forward to our conversation today to really dig in this with you. So let's start out by telling the audience just a little bit about yourself and what led you to write your book, Image Transformations of the Brain-Mind.
Well, I'm a retired professor from the Minnesota University, State University system. Mm-hmm. And I've had multiple careers and spent a lot of time working with people in the correction system who have had behavioral problems and various types of mental illness, chemical dependency, and so on. Mm-hmm. So throughout my life, I've taught and researched and developed treatment programs in these areas. And when I wrote my autobiography in 2009, I realized that the type of experiences I've had throughout my lifetime are rather unique in that they go across a vast number of altered consciousness experiences that people have historically and across the world and in different cultures. And my background is in psychology, sociology, and anthropology. So I've moved across world cultures historically. I've spent a fair amount of time in inner city people with the old Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, mm-hmm. and about 10 years teaching on the reservation, doing work with Indian students, becoming familiar with the kind of abuses and histories they've had, and my introduction to shamanism and was with primarily the Winnebago and the Lakota people. So I've had a bit of a unique background. I had my first altered experience about a year and a half of age when I had a near-death experience, and the doctor pronounced me dead, and I went off to what I described as a journey to heaven, typical tunnel type of experience where you see light at the end and figures show up that I identified as angels, but they were dressed like my aunts and uncles and about the same age.
And this was at age 1.5 that this happened to you?
It was 1.5. And I confirmed that because I thought it was at age 3, but my brother is 6 years older than I am. And checking with my parents and the doctor, I was about a year and a half old.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, and your background is just amazing. I mean, so many things that you've said there are, as you said, multiple careers, I guess, as you introduced yourself, but so much interesting background there. For today's conversation, let's maybe also start out with telling us a little bit more about what led you to start working with your own dreams and dream scripting.
I had a difficult childhood where I was really abused and developed what we typically call post-traumatic stress syndrome. Mm-hmm. And I had 2 really debilitating nightmares. And when I got out of the service, entered the University of Minnesota in 1957, I put myself under a lot of stress. I was trying to take 22 hours of credits and work almost full time, which was insane. Yeah. And so the nightmares came back. So I was having 2 and 3 nightmares nightly. And of course, I was losing energy. I was getting tired. And so I decided that I should learn how to control them. Mm-hmm. And I had played with hypnosis as a high school student. I bought a book for 25 cents at the local library sale, practiced hypnotizing my friends and so on. So I was aware of self-hypnosis. So I began to practice self-hypnosis, and I, without any familiarity with the dream scene or the research, I started scripting romantic dreams and substituting those for my nightmare. So when a nightmare would start, I would automatically, my brain would automatically produce a romantic kind of movie-like scene for replacement. So after doing that for a few weeks or a couple of months, my brain would automatically create such a scenario. So I was free of nightmares for 20 years, from age 22 to 42, when I let them return because I wanted to experience naturally again what my brain was doing. But what was unique about that, the Freudians who dominated American psychiatry said that you can't do that. That's going to mess you up and you're going to become more pathological. Well, I was getting really positive benefits from it all. And so I thought they were kind of full of hooey. And I went to the library and I read psychiatric reports, more of the same, and I had started in the military reading Freud because some of the people I was in the service with were graduates from Yale and Harvard and MIT and New York University, a lot of nice schools that knew a heck of a lot more than I did about almost everything. And so they got me reading Freud, and that was my initial journey. But what I was experiencing was totally in contrast with Freudian theory and treatment. So to move forward quickly in time, I sent J. Allen Hobson my books in 2012. And he's a Harvard psychiatrist, also an internationally known dream researcher. And he was impressed by them and recommended them. So I met with him 2 weeks at his various residencies, and we dialogued almost daily for about 6 months. And he confirmed that my self-therapy was something that the psychiatric community had really ignored for a long time, and re-supported the use of hypnosis, which I was using, as well as dream scripting. And so he wrote a book called Ego Damage and Repair after our meetings. And he has 35 pages of case study in there of my own self-therapy, really supporting what I did in negating the whole Freudian approach.
That's amazing. So you were having these nightmares, and you, through your own self-discovery, were able to. Can you explain what dream scripting is, just in a couple sentences, maybe for those who aren't familiar with it?
Yes, you decide to have a certain kind of dream ahead of time, and then you have that dream. So you just substitute it.
So you're telling your subconscious.
I called it dream programming because I wasn't familiar with the term scripting at the time. But I just decided that I needed a nice, pleasant dream. I'm 21 years of age when I started doing this, a young man, and I'm healthy and I like women. I'm very oriented to having a life that includes women and a wife and children and so on.
Right.
And so I decided on that particular scenario and introduced that. So by being able to control what my brain was producing with self-hypnosis, I created anything that I wanted to, and said when the nightmare starts, the dream will substitute for it. I mean, this is the whole mental set that I had.
Right.
And then of course that kicks in, and I did that for 20 years. But after just a very short period of time, a couple of months or so, my brain would automatically create that kind of a movie scenario,
right,
and substitute it.
And so are you programming then your subconscious mind prior to sleep? Is that how it works, to get your brain to make the shift into the more positive dream that you were choosing?
You need to learn various aspects of mind control.
Okay.
So as I led up to it, what I did is that I to learn self-hypnosis, I would say things like lay down quietly, relax without any disturbances, and say your arm or leg, my arm or leg is rising. You're not making it rise, it's rising on its own. So what I was doing is teaching the automatic primary part of the old brain to act on its own. Mm-hmm. And then by remaining lucid, meaning that I was aware of what I was doing while I was doing it. Right. I observed myself doing these things. So anyway, I use self-hypnosis to learn mind control. And if you think of mind control to say the way some Buddhists do or yogis do, they can control the imaging in their dreams or when they're awake, what's going through their minds. And so I learned how to do that on my own using the mind control techniques of self-hypnosis.
That's so fascinating. And so you were having these nightmares, you made some choices to experience something different in your life, and you were able to use self-hypnosis to retrain your mind to have different dreams, which and then in turn, because we all know if we having nightmares or not being able to sleep, I mean, that impacts our lives so greatly. And so when you were doing this, then, so with dreams, maybe this is the better question. With dreams, we all dream every night. And is that right? Everyone does, but maybe we just don't remember.
Probably between 25 and 50 dreams every night. And what we now know is that we probably dream about 6 hours of our 8 hours of sleep.
So most of our sleeping time, the majority of it, we're dreaming, whether we remember it or not when we wake up.
Right. And it's at different levels of complexity.
Right. Because I know I've experienced where sometimes I'll dream something that felt like I'm dreaming it right before I wake up, and I have such a vivid memory of it. But then I also, there's times I wake up, I'm like searching for the dream. Like I know I had a dream, but I can't remember what it was. And I'm kind of trying to search for it to try to remember what it was prior to waking up.
You need to do that consistently because normally we dream and the functions of dreams don't need a memory to be carried over into waking. And so you really have to practice observing your dreams, remembering them when you wake up. Do it right away as soon as you are in the process of waking up. And what I discovered over time is that being lucid in dreams, I could stay awake for 1 or 2 complete dream cycles. A dream cycle is about 90 minutes, 70 to 120 minutes. It's 90 average. Mm-hmm. So within that, I typically have 9 different dreams that I remember. And I also have sort of a pause or a dead time there that yogics and Buddhists have various names that they give to that period of time. But you observe the whole sequence of the sleep dream with the pause in it. Mm-hmm. And so then I learned that I could keep that dream going at a muted level when I got up and used the bathroom in the middle of the night.
Right. Yeah.
And then when I went back to sleep to put it back at its higher level of functioning or observation. And if I didn't like the way the dream was ending, I could change the ending with it. So those are unusual experiences and degrees of control that you get with mind control that the average person doesn't have.
And when you're in the dreams, are you the observer of the dreams, or are you actually experiencing yourself doing whatever is happening in the dream?
You know, lucid dreamers don't dream lucidly, meaning that they are aware all the time that they're dreaming, that I'm watching my dream and I'm aware that I'm watching my dream. Mm-hmm. But we do it a lot of the time. And occasionally I will do a whole sequence. I mean, I might be awake lucidly and dreaming for, say, 2 hours straight or 3 hours. And that's fairly unusual. But what it does, it gives you insight into what your brain is doing that the normal dreamer doesn't have.
Yes. And that's what I wanted to ask you about, how paying attention to our dreams really opens us up to more self-awareness. Can you talk a little bit about that?
You know, I wrote a book called